All right.
So
we get into it.
yeah.
I'll do a little intro.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Mel, and I am joined by our amazing practice member and friend. I'm going to say it, Ashley, and she's here today to share her amazing story, and it's going to be a conversation. We know that there's interview questions and testimonials, and what I really want for you, Ash, is to feel like this is a safe place to share your story, because a lot of people tune in to our YouTube and our podcast who I know have struggled with very similar things that you have gone through.
Yeah.
And so I really want this to be a safe conversation and place where you can share your truth and what you have experienced under care in your healing journey. So let's roll it back to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Tell us, what was life like before you started your healing journey on Inspire Life, and I know other things you're doing, and however much you want to share, the space is yours.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you for making this space available. It means a lot to just be able to come down and sit here and say, this is what I'm about, this is my truth. So if we want to rewind, I just want to touch a little bit even further back. So I think people think, well, right before I started my healing journey, I'd already done so much work at that point. So I just want to kind of go a little bit further back and start at, my preteen years were not great. They were, to say the least, the years that were obviously the most challenging for most people in the first place. But when I was, I was 12, I started self-harming. I was being sexually molested. It was a really just unfortunate time. I didn't understand what was going on. And that was the age group that really started me off on this really terrible trajectory. This trajectory of just, self-harm, self-loathing. I gained a bunch of weight. I stopped playing sports. Shortly after that, I, really withdrew. And I became a very mentally and physically unwell person. I spent most of my life after my teen years in and out of psychiatric hospitals, taking the gambit of medications. I am not exaggerating when I say I've taken 25 plus psychiatric medications. None of them were helpful. Most of them made me worse. Yeah. Most of them put me in the hospital, if anything else, than keeping me out of the hospital. And that was my mental health journey really was just like the standard, you go to a psychiatrist, you go to a therapist. I was essentially screaming all the time, I'm doing everything, I'm doing everything.
You're doing all the right things.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I was just every day getting worse and worse. I mean, I started to notice that it wasn't just my mental health that was the problem, my physical health just completely tanked. So my mid-20s, I was still drinking all the time. I was definitely smoking weed all the time. Yeah. Anything I could to just numb out everything that was happening to me. I just couldn't process the things that were going on. And so I spent most of my 20s just trying to run away as much as I possibly could. Was very suicidal through most of my 20s. I did not want to be alive. I didn't see the point. It really felt like there was going to be nothing better. I had already, I had already experienced everything life had to give, and it was crap. Yeah. So why am I doing this? So I feel like mid-20s, I finally realized that, maybe I should stop drinking. Maybe I should stop,
What was was there a moment? Because I think a lot of people can resonate with that, just to interject. Because, I can imagine, especially now, post-2020. So if you're watching this video, it's summer 2021. Yeah. And 1, you're not alone. 2, thank you for sharing that. 3, when I do these, space holding experiences for people, oftentimes there is a hitting rock bottom. So what was that like? Was there a turning point where you're like, holy shit, I need to get some stuff together? I
mean, I had more than one of those for sure, right? In stages, but the really big one.
I'm not gonna listen to it right now. Maybe next time.
It's not really bottom, right?
Yeah. No. There's a new bottom.
There's definitely the biggest one I can remember is probably I was drinking, and I didn't normally go to bars, but my uncle and aunt were in town, and so they wanted to go out, and we were out, and I stayed after everyone else left. I was alone, just like drinking, and I ended up like losing my cell phone, and some strange man tried to take me home, and thankfully like my current husband showed up to pick me up and was like, whoa, hey, she's really drunk and that's not appropriate. I woke up the next morning and my husband was looking at me and he's like, I love you unconditionally, but you're running yourself into the grave.
Wow.
And so, I'm in a relationship in which I don't have a controlling husband. I have a husband who supports, loves, lets me learn my own lessons.
Awesome husband.
He's a very good partner. So if he's came out of the way to say, something's got to give here. Yeah. If not for me, but for you. You just can't live this way. I ended up, at that time, I was still very much in the whole regular medicine approach to getting help. Yeah. So I ended up checking myself in. It was my only, my only not forced hospitalization. Yeah. So I chose
autonomy.
I chose to put myself in the hospital and said, I was still in that please help me stage, but I knew that I had to change. I knew that either, look, if I'm not going to kill myself, but I feel like I want to die all the time, then I have to do something about this. Something has to be different. And so I checked myself in the hospital. I stopped drinking.
When was this?
I was 26.
26.
So I'm 31 now. So that was some years ago.
5 years ago. That's not very long ago.
No. Okay. No, ma'am. So I stopped. I mean, I was definitely exhausted by then. I mean, I couldn't keep up in the first place, but I was still relatively physically healthy. I mean, I was overweight still, and but it was really my mental health that was at the time really showing up. So I spent 25, 26, 27 just being like, okay, no more psychiatric medications. I could not find a doctor who would support that decision.
Really?
Unfortunately, a psychiatrist, they're very much in their realm of medicine, and it just wasn't helpful to me. And so, my husband and I went to do our research, and we looked online. How do you withdraw? How do you tear down? How do you cut out, right? And so I just got off all my psychiatric medications, and that was a roller coaster ride. Definitely, if anybody is watching this and they're considering doing that, I mean, have love, have support, have help. It's not a decision to be made lightly, but I think if you're resonating with this idea that like you think medications are making you worse, I mean, there was a lighter moment after clearing my body from those medications for sure. It just felt closer to being able to find me. Yeah. And so after I stopped taking those medications, I stopped drinking, I spent those years just like really still trying to figure out why I was so unhappy. At 28, so at 28 years old, I picked up my husband from work one day. We were driving home, and I suddenly had a debilitating sensation in my left ear. Yeah. And it was, I was driving, so I had to literally pull over. It was this intense pain. I became immediately dizzy and immediately nauseous. I had never experienced anything like that before. So I was terrified. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm having a stroke, like something really bad is happening to me.
And that was just out of the blue.
Really, out of the blue. I was feeling as healthy as I normally do, which was at the time not healthy. Yeah. But I mean, the norm for me. Right. I just didn't, it was a total, seriously, snap. We were in the middle of a conversation about what we were going to go home and make for dinner. Totally pleasant, things were fine. And it's like a light switch flipped. And I was like, oh, I'm sick. Like something is wrong. Yeah. We ended up taking me to the emergency room just to check off I'm not having any big scary things going on. And that was the first time that somebody tried to tell me I had Meniere's disease, which is an inner ear disorder. I won't get super into it.
They can Google it.
Yes, exactly. But it was debilitating. So from 28 to 29 and a half, pretty much, I got progressively worse. So at first it was just a couple times a week. I had to sleep all day. It makes you really tired, really dizzy, really nauseous. And then it came to the point where I couldn't work anymore because I was sick all the time. I couldn't shower by myself anymore. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go to the store. I suddenly, it crept up pretty quickly, but it felt like just ever progressively like, oh, this thing you could do before you can't do anymore. And I was once again crying to the rooftops. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I was seeing the specialists. I was taking the medications. I was trying not to eat the foods. They said, don't eat these foods, do these things. And I was just, it wasn't getting any better. I broke down. I decided to have surgery at 29 on my inner ear. And it unfortunately made me worse. So it was a really intensive surgery. The recovery was absolute trash.
Anyone who's had surgery on their inner ear probably knows that, because it's a very sensitive neurologically and structural area.
And you hold a lot of stuff in your head in the first place. So and at the time I was desperate. I was desperate to just be able to live my life again, be a partner again. I mean, I was not a wife. I was not a person for that entire year and a half, better on 2 years. We had the surgery. I tried to find some normalcy. I thought maybe the recovery was taking a long time, so I tried to be kind in the time it was taking. But I was just getting worse. I was still bedridden. I was still dizzy all the time. I slept all the time. I thought maybe I'm just depressed. That's why I'm sleeping all the time. But even on the very rare occasions where I felt okay when I woke up, I would feel, like just tanked by the middle of the day. Like, oh, I'm so nauseous, so dizzy, I'm vomiting all day. I was at my wit's end. I had done what I believed I could do, what was being offered to me in regular medicine. And finally, my husband, who was already a little bit ahead of me in his own healing journey, had sort of already reached out to like the integrative medicine side and was already taking supplements and exercising all the time. He finally just said to me, what's the harm in going to a doctor who will take a different approach? I was terrified. I had been raised to believe that all of that, integrative medicine, chiropractic work, any of this stuff was like for crazy people, and for like it was one of those, if you do that, people are going to look at you like, oh, that's the kind of person that she is. And I had a lot of reservations, but I was desperate. I was beyond desperate. I needed, at that point, I started to become suicidal again, and it had been such some time before I had been that way, but it wasn't a life. I was not living a life. I was suffering through a day-to-day life. So I went to my first integrative medicine appointment, and at that very appointment was referred to Dr. Mel.
I remember that phone call actually. Well, to speak to a few things, Ash, I mean, to think about all those things that you had been through and going off of medication on your own, which I will echo what you said. For anyone who is curious on a different approach to mental health, very important to do your research, which you and Scott are really good at. And some people will just cut it cold turkey, which your body's going to re-regulate.
It is, absolutely.
But I think about,
Be hard.
A lot of the people I've cared for here, and you especially, all of the adversity that you faced for over a decade in your life. If you talk about adolescence, probably even before that, and yet still this, what you're speaking to, this inner drive and this inner will, even having the suicidal thoughts and even having what's the point of life, still that deep innate wisdom that's like, no, you are meant to be on this planet and there is another way. Just that persisting through those years is absolutely remarkable.
Thank you.
And I know you've shared your story with me a lot, but I feel like there's nuances that come through that I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not realize, I don't want to use good and bad, but I didn't realize it had gotten to that level of intensity. I mean, we'll get into this in a second about what's changed, but I forgot about the dizziness and and I literally, because you're such a different person.
So did I. So honestly, I had, when I had to take notes before we came in, because I was like, oh man, I was really sick, cold.
I want to speak to that too, just before we continue, is it isn't until you reflect back on your journey that you realize how far you've come in those moments that you doubt, have I made progress? Or is this even worth it? And you're like, oh my gosh, I've come such a long way. So I just wanted to speak to that, because I know people out there who listen to this have gone through similar things, and especially now, 2021, there's a lot of mental health stuff.
Absolutely.
And there are different paradigms, which I know you're going to speak to. So I get the call from Ashley, and I remember this. What was it?
I was so nervous. It was just about a year, right? It was July, right? So it was just a year ago,
I believe it's been a year.
I know. I feel like it has to be way longer
like
with the progress that I've made. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, it surely is. But I think it's only been
about a year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So you called, went to integrative medicine, getting, stuff balanced there. I remember you calling and sharing with me your experience. So then what has transpired?
So, I mean, after the very first adjustment, so I saw you and I was still very much in this space.
What is
and I
this
was like,
chiropractic
she's
thing?
not going to help me. Look, all right, like nothing's going to come of this, but I'm going to go so I can say I checked all my boxes. Yep. So I was 100% skeptic. And I just want to point that out because people need to know that, like, I didn't think any of this would work. No, I didn't believe that I just thought I was too sick, I was too unhealthy. I had already done all of these pretty hardcore modern medicine things and they didn't work. So what was this lady going to do for me? It was going to be nothing.
Well, and just to share that, like, really quickly, a lot of people have said, like, oh, it works for these people,
right,
but not for me.
Exactly.
It works for you, but not for me.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to really push this point. And I know we sort of reiterated, but I really want people to understand, like, I did not come from a life of privilege. I did not, have all my ducks in a row. And then I was like, oh, but now I just want to further my amazingness. No, none of that was going on.
It's like, no, my life is like in the shit right now.
Exactly. But after my very first adjustment, I woke up the next day for the first time, I'll get teary, for the first time in 2 years, I was not nauseous. No nausea. And I hesitate to present it that way because it sounds like that's not possible. Everything you're saying you went through. But it was. I woke up completely not nauseous. And even me still at the time, I was like, it's in my head. It's in my head. Like, I'm totally not, like, I want it to be this way, so it's working, So I was very hesitant still. I had some serious, like, getting out of my own head to do in that regard. But really, so right away, it was no nausea. And I don't want to give the impression that, the couple months after that weren't really hard work, because they were really difficult work. I mean, I was going through becoming a different person. What do I value now? What do I believe in now? What do I understand now? But I mean, when you start getting the no nausea, I was suddenly showering by myself again. I was driving again. I work again. I have a job. Like, I leave my house and go somewhere and help other people. I've lost, since I started working with you, I've lost upwards of 79 pounds. I've gotten off of birth control as a personal decision. Gosh, I mean, it's hard to, like, I stopped smoking weed because I hadn't done that yet on the thing.
Were you still smoking cigarettes when you came? Or
Yes, I was vaping. Yeah. I should say, right. So I used to smoke. God, there's so many things.
You are a new human.
When we vaped, I mean, I want to be very clear. Like, I smoked cigarettes from the time I was 16 until I was so I would have been 29, 30 when I first started coming here. I would have been 30, right?
Yep.
So I was smoking cigarettes and then vaping.
Yep.
The problem with vaping, and in difference to cigarettes, is I was vaping the highest nicotine dose and constantly.
Yeah.
Because you can do it inside. It doesn't smell.
Why
it smells
not?
Pretty, actually, right? So you're like, oh, fruity
This is
flavors
great.
in my house, right? So you don't care. So I mean, literally nonstop. Every activity that I was doing, I was vaping. And I was way more addicted to vaping than I ever was to cigarettes.
Which I've heard that.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, it's a different beast. Yeah. It's more nicotine and you can do it way more and you don't have to go outside or anything like that. Two months after I started getting adjustments, I quit vaping.
Yep.
I just tiered myself down, got to 0 milligrams. Was it easy? Hell no. It sucked. It sucked so much, but I finally had, like, the power and the space and the belief in myself that I'd be able to do it.
Yes.
And before, it was like I was way too anxious. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. I was already uncomfortable all the time.
You were disconnected.
Right. And so I finally just was like, nope. So we quit vaping. I thank you for remembering. It's a huge thing. That was a really big deal. And honestly, I don't, like, I know a lot of ex-smokers will say, like, they still really miss it or they crave it or they think about it even year plus later. I just don't feel that way. I feel like the person that was vaping or smoking is just not running the show anymore.
Yes.
It's like that person is no longer in the front seat.
Yeah.
So it just feels really, really different. I'm sure I lost a bunch of weight. I've completely changed the way that I feed myself, look at my body. I obviously am like a work in progress. I mean, I still have days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel tired and crappy.
Yeah.
But it's like a day here or there now, as opposed to every day of my life all the time.
The predominant narrative.
Right.
Well, and I think too, Ash, what you're saying is, I want to be clear with this too, is a lot of the times, even in holistic medicine, there can be a lot of suggestive things like, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And that's fine. Like if you've never been exposed to maybe what meditation could do or what stopping vaping could do, but something that was really beautiful in your experience was there were these like light bulb awareness moments as your body mind got more integrated and connected, and literally cells shedding layers of old parts of you and new parts of you coming through. You're like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I am open to doing this. Or like it was just kind of these different thoughts started to come through.
Absolutely.
And we entertain that versus like, okay, Ash, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Because that's a big thing I teach is like, look, I'm not going to give you all of these things to do, but let your body start to discover it and then have a conversation as your nervous system gets more aligned. And that's a really cool thing to see over the months.
Thank you. That's a really good point, is that she never was like, hey, you have to do this, you have to do this. I don't think you've ever given me a demand of any kind. It was like once again, like holding the space right now, you held the space for me to realize that I could do these things.
Yes.
Things that I never thought I would quit smoking weed, ever. I thought I would be smoking weed until the day that I died. I thought I'd be vaping until the day that I died. I thought I'd always be really overweight. I thought I would always be unhappy. I did not anticipate how fundamentally life-changing that this work was for me. I mean, and like I said, just a reminder, crazy skeptic. I did not even put my toes in this kind of world a year ago. And if I'm honest, and I should be, I looked down on people that did.
Yep.
Because I was superior. I held the high ground of my education and my research and everything else it would have been. And now, I mean, I could not be more grateful for the absolute, I mean, my trajectory before this care, I mean, I was definitely grasping at straws, trying to get healthier. I was trying to get better. But if I'm totally honest with myself, number one, it was a really big possibility that I was going to end up dead. And I don't want to be dramatic in that. It's just truthful. I was so ill and so unwell that there just wasn't any light at the end of my tunnel for me. But I feel so opposite of that now. I mean, my trajectory now is like, I'm going back to school. I'm getting additional trainings. I'm absolutely going to embody this work. I want to help everyone that I possibly can to know that if you can go from, 12-year-old being molested, abusing yourself, making every poor decision that you could from 12 to 28 to 30 years old, you can come to the other side. There can be something else, and there is another way, and it doesn't have to be, I suppose I'll say, it doesn't have to be through someone else. It's through you.
Yes.
You showed me. And I am eternally grateful for that.
I'm gonna start crying. I don't know what else to say other than like just woman to woman, sister to sister, like literally letting go of like the doctor hat, the practice member hat. Like this to me is my soul calling of like being a mirror and like holding that mirror up to you to recognize your greatness even through like the dark times. Yeah. And again, the more you share your story, Ash, you can feel the ripple into the universe, and I hope this is landing for people, but like I don't know what else to say other than like I am honored, I am humbled to just honestly be like alongside you. Yeah. Like it's literally like, hey, I got you. Like, let me remind you of yourself and like come up here or down here or whatever direction we want to go. But then be like, look, it is in you. Yeah. And to be like, to hear everything you've gone through and still have that hope gives other people hope. Even you just sharing this now, however you're tuning in, you are a healer, right? You are a healer. This is healing. I think people have this perception of like, you going into these hospitals or like I need to go somewhere to be healed.
Right.
And yes,
someone will fix me.
Yeah, and you come to Inspire Life, right? Like, this is an external thing, but in reality, when you lay on the table, it's you tuning into you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's you tuning into you, and that's the biggest thing. And I'm glad that you said that, because that's the biggest thing I try to get people is like, yes, you leave your house and you come here, but in reality, like, you come to yourself.
Yeah, you're coming home.
Yes.
It's a place you go to come home.
Yes.
And I just, real quick, one more thing I want to point out before
share whatever.
if you're waiting for anything, if anything is holding you back because you think you can't do it, you won't be better, I promise you, I have been exactly there. You can do this. This work is not, it's not meant for a special kind of people. It's not meant for people who have a lot of money or have all their shit together or anything like that. It's meant for you. If you're waiting on anything, stop waiting. There's a person inside of you that needs your help, and you can help them. I just wanted to really let people know. I waited a really long time, and I didn't have to. And now I'm happy to know that I don't have to wait any longer. So,
and invite people on.
Yes,
the journey,
please.
Like you, I've gone through very similar things, and I think the more that we can get connected to our body minds together, that to me, and I know you have this vision too, and mission is like, it creates a healthier world.
Yeah.
Healthier relationships, kids, the work you're learning. I mean, it's, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, you said it all. I'm just holding the space for your amazingness. Don't wait. So if this is resonating with you, comment below. I know Ashley's on YouTube.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know if I could tag you in this. We'll figure it out.
We'll see.
Yeah. But comment below what questions you have, because I know that, again, sometimes we bump on that edge. If there's a new paradigm we're stepping into, you can have those thoughts that hold you back. And so I know I'm here to support you in that. Ashley's here to support you in that. We have amazing practice members. Like, I just got to say that. Like, the people here are freaking awesome.
The community here is fantastic.
Yeah. So if anything, come and have tea with us and hang out. It's just a healing space.
That's right.
Anything else, Ash, you want to share?
No, Sarah, thank you. Thank you for listening to your calling. Thank you for giving the space.
You're welcome. Truly. Thank you for allowing me to present my art and my work. So thank you all for listening and tuning in. If this resonates, share it with your people, because we are on a mission to create a healthier world and create a more aligned world. So until next time, y'all, keep inspiring. Bye.